Welcome back. 28 before the hour now. Several members of the U.S. women's national soccer team are suing the U.S. Soccer Federation. They claim the gap between what men make and what women players earn amounts to illegal discrimination. Seth Berenzweig is managing partner at the firm Berenzweig Leonard. He joins us now. Good to have you back.
You bet. Great to see you.
It's interesting to be able to go at this issue in some detail because if you look at the numbers, it's acknowledged that the men who play on the U.S. men's national team make more than the women who play on the women's team. The question is that okay? Is that allowed under our system? Take us through this. What are the issues that matter most?
Sure. So this is a discrimination case, and it really is a landmark case because it's one of the only times that a joint employer in world and professional sports employs both the women's team and the men's team. So it's kind of a perfect storm of legal events. This is a battle that's actually been brewing behind the scenes for a few months. In the latter part of last year, the women's soccer team actually had to call off a game because the conditions were so deplorable that they felt it was literally unsafe to play. They've really had different terms and conditions of playing and compensation, and that's been going on for quite some time. 2 months ago, the Soccer Federation actually filed a lawsuit against the union for the national women's soccer team, claiming that they wanted to sue to prolong a memo that was supposed to stretch out the collective bargaining agreement. And just to really boil it down to its essentials, just about all professional sports teams operate under collective bargaining agreement. It's very rare to not have collective bargaining. They have it in the NFL. The men's soccer team has it. This federation has been so allegedly clueless about how to treat the women. They're not even engaging in collective bargaining, and they filed a lawsuit in Chicago to try to compel them to play in the Olympics in Rio. A few months later, we find ourselves with an EEOC lawsuit filed in all places, Chicago, alleging violations of equal pay under federal law. So we have a huge confluence of events over the last few days.
And it'll be fascinating, to say the least, to watch all this get sorted out, because on the one hand, it would be so easy to look at the work being done, the skill level involved, the hours of preparation, the travel. It's so similar, what the women do and what the men do, and yet the pay is different. And the reason it's different, one could say, I mean, the differences do line up in terms of gender. On the other side, and this is true in other sports, folks will say, but the revenue is different. It's a bigger pie. So we're going to slice the pie in similar ways, but because the pies are different in size, the slices will be different. That's how you end up with bigger paychecks for men, smaller for women. Exactly.
And up until a couple of years ago, that's an argument that would have worked. You look at other professional sports, such as the NBA. You have the WNBA and the men's NBA. Technically, those are different employers, but it's a similar concept. The women's league brings in more money, so certainly there's less revenue share that goes around. In this case, as the EEOC complaint in Chicago demonstrates, that logic really doesn't work very well anymore, because over the last several years, the women's team has been doing phenomenal, and the men's team didn't even qualify for the Olympics. So the revenue has steadily increased. Their prominence has increased. They played Japan last year, and that was one of the hugest games and a huge revenue garner. So that's an argument that's going to be very difficult. It looks like the Federation has a really uphill battle on it.
Even the per diem is different. And while the dollars there are really small, I think the optics are bad. You know, per diem is hotel and food and the daily stuff of being part of the team, and having the travel, needing to eat, needing a hotel room and all that. So it's not big dollars, but it will, I think, support the plaintiff's general claim.
I believe so. And you talk about the optics, and that's always a very important part in these cases. The optics in this case are horrible for the Federation. And in fact, over the last year, the women have been treated arguably in a very shabby way. And in fact, in the realm of FIFA, which is not under the immediate direct control of the Soccer Federation, but FIFA's been a big part of this, and Sepp Blatter, who was recently deposed as the president, actually acted like a Neanderthal a couple of months ago when he said that the women really need to wear tighter shorts so that they look more feminine. And it was just such a shocker. And the reason why I think that matters is that the Supreme Court has said that during the course of this kind of federal law, that the idea is to avoid stereotypes. People need to get equal pay for equal work, and avoid the stereotypes. So when you have some blockhead like Seth coming in and saying things like that, and you look at this disparate pay, the ratio of the money that men make to the women's team is about 4-to-1. So it really is a very stark difference as you read the complaint.
The phone line's open as we continue to talk with legal analyst Seth Berenzweig, talking in a general sense about gender pay, the ongoing, the lingering gender pay discrepancy that we have, and in particular this challenge by the athletes on the U.S. women's national soccer team. Phone line's open for those of you watching us live in the 11 a.m. hour. We always enjoy getting your thoughts into the conversation. So we've posted the number to the bottom of the screen. Grab an open line. We'll go to the phones as your calls come in. 703-387-1020. That's the number here. Do grab an open line right away so we can get calls into the queue. What will you be watching for? How does this get sorted out now that we're here?
Sure. So what happens now is that it goes into the EEOC process. The way federal law works, you can't immediately walk into the courthouse door. You have to go in for a minimum of 6 months to go to the local EEOC office and exhaust the administrative process, which is what they're doing right now. Typically, the EEOC process is a little bit slow, and when you have a very strong case, which certainly appears to be the case here, counsel that knows what they're doing will get what is known as a right to sue letter after 6 months and a day, and they're off to the races. They're going to go to the U.S. District Court. They're going to file that lawsuit. And I think at the end of the day, this case is going to end up the way a lot of these soccer matches end up. It's going to be resolved on the international stage. We're going to be looking at a landmark case where this is going to be affecting women's sports, certainly throughout the United States. I don't think this is going to settle anytime soon.
Can you take the revenue piece out of it? I mean, clearly, the NBA,
right,
blockbuster. WNBA is doing, is showing nice improvement year over year, but no one would compare the two in terms of crowds.
Sure.
Their presence in the sports landscape, the conversations that we have, and I mean, look at the jersey sales. Every aspect of it, it's simply bigger, and so therefore this point that I was making before, the pie is bigger, so we slice it, just so, but then you pull a slice out. NBA ginormous, WNBA hopefully enough to live on, but clearly smaller. Is there no room for that aspect, if you will, of our sports reality in pay questions?
Absolutely, because it has to be equal pay for equal work in similar circumstances. And in this case, the Soccer Federation has already come out and really raised exactly the point that you just said. They're saying, look, you have to take a look at the entire landscape. You have to take a look at the entire league. And it's very common in professional sports for there to be a revenue share plan based upon a profit pool. The NBA does it. The NFL has a profit pool. In fact, they just wrapped up a settlement on what the profit pool is. So you're absolutely right. The problem is that the data doesn't support the position, because over the last couple of years, the women's team has been so wildly successful that the revenue has really started to come in. So that will be a defense, but whether it actually works at the end of the day, time will tell.
I remember so many years ago, there was the Equal Rights Amendment, the ERA.
Sure.
A big part of that was equal pay for equal work. Fast forward to today, same gap.
Sure.
Women make less than men for the same work. I think we're in the 77 cents area now. So, how does this persist when it seems to go against the grain of so much of what we want our society to be?
Well, I think sometimes the law has a few years to catch up with the reality on the ground.
But this has been so many years.
Absolutely, and that's why Congress created the Equal Pay Act. However, now that we have the Equal Pay Act, the point that you're raising, which I think is a good one, is that we still are having a lag where there are some industries, such as in professional sports, where you don't have that parity. So I think that this case is going to really have a huge impact on being able to bring the facts on the ground back to where the law requires.
I want to come back to this question in a moment, but first let's go to the phones. Hi, John. We're picking up on line 1 in order to talk with John in the district. Go ahead, please. You are on the air.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to know if this revenue profit thing can be equated to crabs. Do you realize that there is more revenue that's brought in from selling male crabs than female crabs?
I'm missing one of the words in there. I'm sorry. Selling male what?
Crabs. Do you eat crabs? I mean, male crabs cost more They bring in more revenue.
Oh, you're talking literally seafood?
Yes, seafood. Yeah.
The seafood aspect of this hadn't occurred to me.
Hey, there's always a story beneath the story.
To the point of beyond the soccer field,
right.
How it is that the numbers consistently show that women make less than men for comparable work.
Right.
I don't know why why efforts to go at that are met with resistance, because A, it seems unfair on its face, and
right.
B, men have daughters, wives, sisters, moms.
Sure.
Their victories are our victories.
Sure.
It's so against the grain of what you have in a society where merit should govern and not other things, not parts.
Well, absolutely, and it's also counterintuitive to the best processing of business. I mean, I think that we are gradually breaking through that artificial glass ceiling, where now we recognize that we increasingly have more women CEOs that are doing amazing jobs, that are coming in, adding diversity to the workforce. People need to be paid based on merit and not on gender, and I think this case is going to really go a long way towards really carrying that flag forward.
Because of its prominence.
Absolutely. It's going to play out on a national stage.
Line 2 this time, Dan in Fredericksburg. Hi, you're on the air. Go right ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning, and thanks for taking my call.
Yes, Dan.
My question was sort of an observation, not a question. The observation is this is the entertainment industry. You know, women's soccer is part of the entertainment industry. Hollywood, all that kind of stuff is all lumped in entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
So the entertainment value is based on people who want to show up to watch it. So if there are more men, more revenue on the men's side, then they probably should. This lawsuit seems to me is frivolous, because if there aren't people showing up for the women's games and not generating revenue, then they really don't have a leg to stand on the entertainment side. Now, the question I have is, if they do prevail and win this lawsuit, will it have a residual effect on other entertainment industries? For example, the women in the WNBA that you mentioned earlier.
Sure.
Would they now have a leg to stand on to say, hey, we should make as much as Kobe Bryant, even though we don't bring in the people?
Thanks, Dan. What could the precedent value be?
Well, I think that the value of that, in terms of that wrinkle, is really important, because most collective bargaining agreements use profit pool as part of the equation, and that also brings huge revenue in from television. So that's a very good point. I think at the end of the day, all these factors are going to be brought in, and this result in this case is going to have huge implications throughout not only the sports industry, but through entertainment as well. This is a theme that's been playing in Hollywood as well as in Washington.
Can't underestimate the value of not only a win in court, but one in a high-profile area that sort of becomes part of the narrative. Becomes
Absolutely.
part of the larger discussion about issues such as this. Legal analyst Seth Berenzweig, always good having you here. Thanks very much for your time.
My pleasure.
See you again soon, I'm sure. A break here. Back, though, with more News Talk right after this.